right, so thank you guys for joining us for our Extending Business Applications with Model-Driven Apps webinar. I am Erin. I'm the marketing manager here at Marquee 360, and I have Zach on the call with me as well. Zach, you want to introduce yourself really fast?
Yeah, hi, I'm Zach. I'm a solutions architect here at Marquee 360, and I specialize in all things Power Apps.
Awesome. And Zach's going to be giving the technical part of our demo today. All right, and Tim, this is going to be some background that you already know, but I'm just going to run through it really quick. So at Marquee 360, we're a Microsoft partner, and we started out in the work management space, helping with extending Project Online and now Project for the Web. When Microsoft introduced the Power Platform, it kind of changed the landscape for us. So we started utilizing that technology to extend the capabilities of Project. And then we also started building our own standalone apps on the Power Platform. So our key focus areas are innovation. So like I said, we utilize the Power Platform to extend capabilities, to follow Microsoft's roadmap using the Power Platform in the low code, no code space. So it gives our customers a little bit more flexibility instead of us building out these custom coded, complicated solutions. We put it in the hands of our customers to be able to manipulate it, change it. It just makes it easier for them to support it after we implement our solutions. So we also, with that, we really focus on customer success. So even though it's low code, no code, we don't just leave it to you guys to try to figure out on your own. We have support services, training workshops, and we act as a true implementation partner. So we're there from the beginning to go over requirements gathering with you and find out what you really need from us, and are there every step of the way through the implementation, getting feedback, and then all those post support services that I talked about already. All right, and today we're going to talk about generally Power Apps. What are Power Apps? Why did Microsoft start using this platform? And then we're going to talk specifically today about model-driven apps. So there was a huge push for digital transformation in a lot of businesses, and that's still true today. But there aren't a lot of developers or specialized resources to be able to fill that gap between what businesses need and the resources that they have. So Microsoft developed the Power Platform, and it's a low-code, no-code platform. So it gives, it's trying to fill that gap to give citizen developers the chance to create their own applications. Yeah. So it also, an advantage to using the Power Platform for pro developers, it gives them a good starting point. It just makes things easier to get started and faster for them. So they are also utilizing the platform as well. So it's great for anyone from pro developers all the way down to business users. So this series, we're going to keep hosting these webinar series with Zach, and they're all about the Power Platform. We're starting out with Power Apps. All of our simple sessions are at the front to get you acclimated, do some education background first, and then we're going to build on that and get into a few more complicated topics. So here we have some dates for the next ones already, and we'll start adding dates to the future ones as well. But a few weeks ago, we did building Canvas apps. Today, we're going to talk about model-driven apps. And then the next session, we'll talk about extending those by using Power Automate. So how to build a workflow, what that looks like. And then the next one after that will be bring that all together into Power BI. How are you reporting on the data that's being transmitted into these apps? And then you can see the next few. Chatbots is a huge topic right now. We've gotten a lot of questions, a lot of interest in chatbots. A lot of customers are starting to utilize those to simplify processes even more. And then Copilot, Zach touched on this at our last webinar just a little bit, but we'll have a whole session on Copilot and how that can help generate your apps even faster. All right. And then I'm going to pass it over to Zach.
Thanks, Aaron. So just want to get started with what are Power Apps and answering the question of really what are Power Apps. And Aaron touched on a lot of this before, but Power Apps is this suite of tools that Microsoft has made for developers and non-technical users to craft and use these custom applications that are going to fulfill your business needs. And importantly, as Aaron said, they empower citizen developers and other business users to create their own application. It's low code, no code. And more specifically, just based on experience, you'll have coding in each of, Canvas versus model driven, depending on the complexity of your application. However, more typically, you will see no code with more simple model driven apps, whereas Canvas apps are a little bit more involved. So you will have to do some coding, but again, it's low code, no code. So it's a really great platform to be developing in. Next slide. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit more about model-driven apps specifically. They have an automatically generated UI, which is based on your data model. So it's really plug and play with your tables, and you don't have to do any manual adjustments or anything like that with the UI. There's built-in support for complex business processes, anything of that sort. You can connect to a wide range of data sources as well, which is extremely useful if you're working on SharePoint or Dataverse or these other things. You can tie everything together with Power Automate. There's multiple ways to work in the Power Platform, and especially with model-driven apps. And most importantly, they're less time-consuming when compared to Canvas apps, and that just is because of the automatically generated UI based on your data model. And with Canvas apps, you really have to start from scratch, even though it is low code. In contrast to Canvas apps, though, you have significantly less control over the design of the UI. There's just not a lot of customization because it is automatically generated. The UI and everything else depends on your data model. And there are new AI capabilities through Copilot, but we won't get into those today. We're just covering the basics, but we do have a couple more sessions down the line talking about chatbots and specifically Copilot with app creation, and we'll get into those topics during those webinars. So just to walk through some examples of model-driven apps, and at the end we'll show a live demo of a more complex example as well. Important to note, these apps are primarily for desktop use. Mobile options are available for model-driven apps, but more typically you'll see Canvas apps on mobile just because of the UI customization options. There's more information as well on the previous webinar we did over Canvas apps. So on the bottom left, you can see a fundraiser donation tracker that has active fundraisers, donations awaiting payment, as well as some at-a-glance charts and graphs at the top. And then the top right picture is an innovation challenge tracker where you can see challenges, ideas, and team projects, and also charts and graphs at a quick glance as well. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and transition into the live demo portion of the webinar. So as we're going over the basics, I just wanted to start by basic navigation and how you actually get to make.powerapps.com, which is your portal where you're going to be creating model-driven apps or Canvas apps, things like that. There's multiple ways that you can access the website. First, if you're on your Microsoft portal, you can, on the bottom, navigate to Developer Tools, and you will see Power Apps. if you've recently accessed the website, it will also be available on the top left waffle navigation, and you should see that. And I believe you can also pin it from the launcher if you want it there permanently. And finally, the easiest way to get there is to just type in make.powerapps.com. I already have it open, so I am just going to click over. So secondly, and this is probably one of the most important things to be aware of when you're working in Power Apps, is your environment. And you can see the environment here on the top right of my screen. Some of you may be working in a situation where you've only got one environment and it's just the default environment, and that's the easy way to I suppose navigate your environments, right? If you just have one, there's no worries. If you're, for instance, working in a more managed tenant where you've got a development and a production environment, you just need to make sure that you're making these changes in the correct environment, because you don't want to make a code breaking change in production and then, cause issues there. So just always make sure that you're in the right environment. Secondly, we're going to be working in these things called solutions. And you can think of solutions as a container for all of the applications, cloud flows, any kind of tables that you create that you want to enter from Dataverse and things like that. Imagine you're cooking and you finish cooking, you're ready to go. You don't just grab the food out of the hot pot and stuff it in the fridge. You've got to put that food in some kind of container so that you don't make a mess. You're not losing bits and pieces here and there. It's just all contained in that one nice space, so you're sure of what is in the container, and again, you're not making a mess. So that's how we can think of solutions. Just to show you how to create a solution, here from home on the left side, you can navigate to solutions. And then at the top, you'll see new solution. Click there. From here, we can enter in a display name, usually the name of your application. So in this case, I would type in employee database app, because that's the kind of app I'll be showing today. The name, internal name, which has those spaces, should fill in automatically. If not, it won't let you put any spaces, so just be aware of that. And then you'll need to select a publisher. In this case, I would just select Marquee 360. If I needed to create a new publisher, there's an option right here. And if I wanted to edit this existing publisher, there's a little pen icon right here. Version, you don't have to worry about this. It's more for those complex processes. But if you're just getting started, it's nothing to worry about. And same thing with more options. When you're done here, you just click create, and then you'd move into your solution. Here, I already have a solution created as well as a model-driven app, but I'm also going to walk through how to create a model-driven app from scratch. So you'll hit new app and model-driven app. And then from here, you just type in the name. This one would be employee database app, but I've already created one. And then you type in the description, and you don't necessarily need to worry about advanced options, but if you wanted to use components from a custom solution, you could, but again, it's advanced. And when you're done with this, you'd click on create. I already have an application, so I'm going to move over to that now, just so we don't have to wait as long as Dataverse wants to take to create the app. And now we're in here. So this is home base for model-driven apps creation. Just walking through the UI a little bit here as to not overwhelm, starting from the left to the right. On the far left side at the top, we've got our kind of navigation editing bar, which will change based on the context of what we've clicked. So if I have nothing selected, it would just say add page settings. Now I have a form selected, so I can edit the form by clicking here. There's also usually context or options next to where you're clicking if you want to do the same kind of thing. On the far left side, I've got pages, which is kind of the navigation of my model-driven app. I've got data, which allows me to look at the different tables from Dataverse in my application as well as in the entire environment. And then there's automation, where we can pull in Power Automate flows, I believe business rules and things like that, business process flow. Yeah. So on pages, we have our navigation. Just to break this down even further, we've got groups, which is non-visible, but it's just so that you can, it is visible, apologies. Groups, so that you can group your different sections of your app. For instance, this would be employees. And then if I wanted to add teams, I have it added here quickly. I'll show how to add that in a second, but just so we don't have to wait. If I wanted to add teams and I wanted to add that to the employees group, I would hit new, Dataverse table, and then I would search for team and add that. And when I hit add, it would add here in the view under the employees group. After the group, we have views. And so this is what users would see if they clicked on the left navigation into your model-driven app. This view here, this view is customizable. You can have multiple views in a model-driven app. You can rename the sections. You can rename the columns. There's advanced filtering on these columns. And within here, I can see all active employees. So based on this view, there's a filter for only active employees, and here I can see all of those. If we wanted to access the form, we can click on the blue text, or if we wanted to, we could click and edit. And here we have the employee form. So on the left side, you can see that we're now in the form, and we can edit the information of the individual record for the employee. So for instance, if I wanted to change this ID to 0005, I would modify this, save, or I could save and close. And now we can see the change has been made. We have two 0005s, where before one of them was 0001. Okay. I'm just looking here. There's other options as well. There's things that you can modify, such as the command bar at the top. Apologies. There's other things that you can modify, such as the command bar at the top. There are things that Microsoft locks down by default, and you're not allowed to modify. Some of these buttons have preset things they do that you just cannot change. However, you can add a new button here that maybe says email employees, and you can link that to an automate flow that would send an email out to all employees, for example. And that can be accomplished through multiple things. In this case, you'd probably, have some JavaScript on page, and that's where this goes from a no-code solution to a low-code solution. Okay. Just a little bit more on this screen that we can look at. On the right-hand side, past the content of what the users would actually see, we've got more information on what we have selected. So on the left side, I have employees form selected. And on the right side, I've got a bit more information on that. So your table in Dataverse, which is employees, can have multiple views, as we showed here, but it can also have multiple forms. And in this case, I have the main default information form selected. If I wanted to show a different form, I would hit new form here or create a new form in the back end similar to this view, and I'll be able to select that here on the right side. And we can see a couple of those other forms here that wouldn't fit on this screen because the context isn't right. This is a main form, so that's the reason why we see the main form here. Okay. So that is the really simple basics. On the top right, you can add comments. You can save, which just saves without publishing to users who would play. You can publish, which would show that to users who would play the app. And then finally, you can play and test it yourself. Moving on now to a more complex version, an example of an application we've made called PPM 360, which may be a little overwhelming at first glance, but it's all the same things that we just discussed. So if we look on the left side, We've got our navigation. We can see views, we can see forms, we can see some other things, project intake, which is actually an embedded Canvas app. So if I were to click here, we can see we put a Canvas app inside of the model-driven app. So this view here is similar to what the end user would see when they're actually viewing the application. And it just allows quick access to the Canvas app. We've got, if you're familiar with Project for the web, we've got projects, portfolios, and programs here on the left side. There's also some additional tables, resource pool, roles, skills, just some different tables or bits of data that you might want to keep track of. Resource capacity, engagement, time periods, and finally reporting. And we have actually embedded Power BI reports into the model-driven app. I'm sure if I click here, it'll ask me to sign in, right? But you can see if I were signed in, we would actually have the ability to view Power BI reports all within this model-driven app. So the model-driven app can really act as a central hub for supporting your business processes, because we can embed Canvas apps, we can run Power Automate flows, we can embed Power BI reports. There's a lot of different options here and a lot of different capabilities with model-driven apps in terms of what you can accomplish. And whether you're making one from scratch or you're taking Project Accelerator, Project for the web, and customizing that to your liking. Again, sky's the limit in terms of what you really want to do, and a model-driven app can really act as your home hub for that. And for the most part, it works as a no-code solution. But again, there are those situations where you may have a button that calls some JavaScript, or you want some other kind of complex business process that isn't supported with no code, and in that case, it becomes a low-code solution. But I think that, for the most part, covers the content that we wanted to show y'all today. Were there any questions?
Just one question on my side. We're new to all of this, and the Power BI stuff is, we're really starting to get a lot of headway in developing our own reports, and so the only difference, I guess, I'm asking, the dashboard stuff I've got a lot of interest in, but what is the upside of the dashboard over simply, we go directly to Power BI and we build all our reports out for our projects currently in that space?
Yeah. So dashboards, thinking about comparing Canvas apps to model-driven apps, where you have more room for customization and more room for some more room for kind of complexity, right, with Canvas apps, whereas model-driven apps are more restricted. The same can be said for these charts and graphs you see here versus a Power BI report. So this data is instant, it's live. You don't have to refresh this stuff. Power BI, if I'm not mistaken, there is a restriction to refreshing your data with Power BI. So with Power BI, if you have a data set, you'd have to refresh that on a schedule. But Power BI provides multitudes more in levels of the complexity and the customization, because Power BI, like Canvas apps, gives you a blank canvas that you can add to, whereas this is very rigid and structured, and the UI is this is it. Like, if you look at a model-driven app from a different company across the globe, it'll have this look and feel because it's all structured UI, whereas Power BI reports are very much make them how you want them.
So what data is available for the dashboard? Is it the same data set? We can drive it all the way down into our project data set? What's the data set?
Yeah, you can see here, there's a few different data sets used for these. So we have a projects by type, projects by state, overall health, and this is all driven by the projects table.
Okay.
And then we have requests which may be it is project requests. Here's financials, program health. So they're all driven by, or they can be driven by rather, different tables. You're not restricted to one table per, page of graphs, right? But the customization is very, very limited compared to what you would see with Power BI.
I still see a huge upside in developing a few management dashboards here that would be a benefit to some of our folks. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? All right. Back over to Erin then to wrap things up.
Thanks, Zach. Let me just go back to the slides really quick. All right, and you all can see. Awesome.
Yes.
So I touched on it a little bit at the beginning of my presentation, but we do help our customers with any of their Power Apps, Power Platform needs. So if you're already building an app and you kind of get stuck, or you need us to help from scratch, where we meet you where you're at with your journey. So we can help your team sit side by side with them to build an app together in a workshop, or you can say what kind of app you want and we can build it for you. There's a lot of flexibility in our services. And it's not just on Power Apps. We can help build workflows, establish a center of excellence for your entire environment. If you're interested in any of that, please feel free to reach out. I'm going to put my email in the chat for you, and I know, Tim, you have our contact details, so awesome. And like I said, we are having some upcoming webinars, so feel free to browse our website. We do put the recordings of these on our YouTube as well, so if you missed the Canvas one and you're interested in that, or you can't make the upcoming one, always just look at our social media. We're always posting our recordings. And most importantly, thanks for joining us on Friday. We really appreciate your attendance, and hope to see you guys again on a future webinar.